bro. Like you can't go to jail for this.
Damn, I was joking. I don't give a shit.
You literally
There's too many people on the fucking internet who think they can do what they want.
For his trial, but it's not like anything he's done has been a good strategy for his trial. So it's not like too much has changed here. So I guess with some time, we'll find out what actually happens. But if you want to see the full coverage of the trial, you can watch this video right here. And I'll be dropping a vlog of my journey in Korea for the
You hide behind your anonymity.
in the next couple of days. But other than that, if you're new here, feel free to subscribe, drop a like if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
And talk
Peace.
shit. I mean, just look at what happened to Sam when fucking he got catfished. It didn't go too well with him. That dude got strung along with some fucking, I don't even know who. Some person that lied, basically.
Sky News made time for a not-so-subtle piece of social engineering. Promoting a campaign encouraging men to redefine stereotypes about masculinity by getting their nails painted.
Stereotypes in society.
And that's what happens when you're too nice.
With men and conversations that it's so hard to normally.
Too empathetic.
By the end of that week, I realized that we were onto something.
You get caught up in some shit.
Stereotypes.
And when they say men, they're talking about white native men. Mohammed and Kofi aren't getting their nails done because they feel a little bit sad.
And also talk about how all these rigid, the man box that we're put in often as men, how damaging it can be.
There's rigid ideas of identity and masculinity that suggest strength, but as we can see, very often lead to weakness.
The narrative is that male depression is increasing because men are increasingly struggling to conform to male stereotypes. That's largely true, but they won't tell you why. The real reason was actually identified back in 2011 by the British Journal of Psychiatry, namely economic and social changes in Western society driven by the disappearance of manufacturing jobs, the shift away from traditional male and female roles, and men's failure to fulfill the role of breadwinner. Factors which they predicted would, and they were right, erode traditional sources of male self-esteem. The societal subversion of masculinity, its shaming as toxic, was what exacerbated the male depression
toxic
crisis.
now. Everyone gets
strength,
shamed.
not weakness. For men to be men again.
Everyone deserves it.
Masculinity. Yet
no one is free. Everyone has to suffer equally
like women,
and painfully.
Like homosexual men.
An assumption was made about my sexual preferences.
No,
that's the name of the game.
They're supposedly all about alleviating male depression by encouraging straight men to act like gay men, despite the fact that gay men are more than twice as likely as heterosexuals to have long-term mental health conditions. They refuse to identify and resolve the true causes of male depression, then offer a false solution which will actually make men more depressed. Now, I'm not saying all male grooming is emasculating. I mean, you don't want to look like a bum, but painting your nails pretty colours, come on. Speaking of male grooming, it's a question I've heard so many times before. Paul, you're nearly pushing middle age. All right, rude. How come you look 10 years younger than you are?
Jesus.
Only 10? Well, it's not rocket science. It's called regularly moisturising your face and having a good skincare routine. That's why I'm excited to have Tiege Hanley as the sponsor of today's video. They help men start and maintain a skincare routine by simplifying the entire process. I recommend you start with their Level 1 system, which comes with all the basics. A daily face wash to get rid of all the dirt and grime on your skin, a 2 times a week exfoliating scrub to get rid of all the dead skin cells, an AM moisturizer with SPF 20 because you should always be protecting your skin from the sun, and a PM moisturizer to help your skin stay hydrated and healthy throughout the night. Their products have made my skin look and feel healthier than ever. You don't have to just take my word for it. They've got over 7,000 5-star reviews on their website from satisfied customers around the world. Because Tiege is sponsoring this video, they're offering you an amazing deal. Just click the link in the description to get 30% off your first skincare system and a free gift. Plus, as a member, you also get 20% off for life. By the way, both gifts you're choosing from are $20 value and a complete game changers. A silicone body scrubber or a nail and face grooming kit. Pouched it up all nice as well. Personally, I prefer the silicone body scrubber because it just feels so soft and silky on the skin. Ooh, not gonna lie, that does feel nice. So don't wait any longer. Click the link in the description box down below to start your skincare journey today. This guy said it better than I could. Masculinity isn't toxic. It built civilization, fought wars, protected families, and advanced society. Now the focus is on men getting manicures. It isn't about breaking stereotypes. It's about undermining masculinity. Men need purpose, strength, and leadership, not nail polish. Prioritizing that over making men soft and fragile might halt society's decline. This whole men's mental health crusade we've been subjected to for the last decade is just one giant exercise in ignoring the elephant in the room. Why are white native British men feeling depressed? Gee, I wonder. Could it be that the towns and cities are being turned into unrecognizable shitholes shitholes as a result of mass migration, their identity, culture, and birthright, the country they loved growing up in, is being decimated. The economy's in managed decline, public services are crumbling, the standard of living's been shredded, and they're fucking freezing because they can't afford to heat their own homes. All while the government jacks up taxes even higher while they get increasingly less in return. Could any of that have anything to do with them feeling a bit down? No, it must be because they didn't whip out their nail varnish and talk about their feelings enough.
An assumption was made about my sexual preferences.
Could wearing nail polish help solve toxic masculinity and men's mental health crisis? It could be a start. No, it's not. They shovel this shite down our throats, then clutch their pearls in shocked amazement that young men are getting masculinity advice from people like Andrew Tate. What do you expect when this is your alternative? Getting manicures and blubbering about your emotions. They've replaced strong traditional male role models with some.
I just remembered.
To stop, civilization fought wars, protected families, and advanced society. Now the focus is on men getting manicures. This isn't about breaking stereotypes, it's about undermining masculinity. Men need purpose, strength, and leadership, not nail polish. Prioritizing that over making men soft and fragile might halt society's decline. This whole men's mental health crusade we've been subjected to for the last decade is just one giant exercise in ignoring the elephant in the room. Why are white native British men feeling depressed? Gee, I wonder. Could it be that their towns and cities are being turned into unrecognisable shitholes as a result of mass migration? Their identity, culture, and birthright, the country they loved growing up in, is being decimated. The economy's in managed decline. Public services are crumbling. The standard of living's been shredded. And they're fucking freezing because they can't afford to heat their own homes. All while the government jacks up taxes even higher while they get increasingly less in return. Could any of that have anything to do with them feeling a bit down? No, it must be because they didn't whip out their nail varnish and talk about their feelings enough.
An assumption was made about my sexual preferences.
Could wearing nail polish help solve toxic masculinity and men's mental health crisis? It could be a start. No, it's not. They shovel this shite down our throats, then clutch their pearls. They want to be non-conformist. Men are getting masculinity advice from people like Andrew Tate.
No one's gonna like them
anyway. When this is your alternative, getting manicures and blubbering about your emotions. Right? They've replaced strong traditional male role models with some dude who started a campaign after having his nails painted for a Harry Styles concert.
Did
and another thing I mention, another major
reason
reason why male depression is rising is because they can't find a decent woman, get married, and build a family. Our declining birth rates clearly illustrate how this problem's getting worse. That feeling of atomization and loneliness is born out of their failure to fulfill the core destiny of true masculinity manifested. If you want to completely repel all normal women until kingdom come, if you want to guarantee they'll never be interested in you romantically, then get
you said you hated me yesterday.
An assumption was made about my
and sometimes before that too. Why are you a liar? Okay. Why are you lying?
Man. But yeah, try explaining to her why it's so important to break
stereotypes
about masculinity by behaving more like a woman, and she'll run a fucking mile. If you value what I do and you want to help support me, please visit pauljosephwatson.locals.com.
Why don't you find yourself a nice lady,
or subscribe to join my community, get early access videos, including exclusive articles. That's modernity.news.
State enforced homosexuality. The funny one. I would, but I'm busy doing Asian shit. Sure. Why break stereotypes when they work? Not to insult you, but you have a 7-minute with of these were a 4-minute advert about skincare. It's a bit over the top, I'd say. The advert was what? It was about from 4 minutes to what? It was about 2:30ish. You can say like 2:25 to 4. Yeah, that's normal, I'd say. That's normal for people with baked-in ads. I don't know what to tell you. That's just how fucking YouTubers do. That's just how YouTubers and Twitch people do their shit now. Even kick people. Any fucking any content creator does this shit nowadays. Like, come on now. What are we doing? It's like fucking the television where they fucking do a goddamn infomercial. Or, well, not really infomercial, but those fucking like 5-minute ads. Like, goddamn. That's what the online space is turning into. At least for Twitch. The UK can take some of our idiots too, please. Let's deport them back to their ancestors' homeland. Alright, modernity. WNBA wants equal pay? Fuck no. They're already getting paid more than fucking a lot of people. Get the fuck out of here. Fucking dumbass rich bitches.
WNBA is estimated to bring in $200 million in revenue. Just for comparison, the NBA is expected to earn $13 billion. The WNBA has historically lost around $10 million per season. Some estimates have said that the league is going to lose about $50 million.
The WNBA attendance, not good. The WNBA ratings, not good. The WNBA salaries, not good. It's not working because you, the consumer, don't want it, and I'm never going to cover anything because I feel it's a movement.
That's taking away from what we should be talking about, which is equal pay. Here's the thing. This cannot be done. It is not on the oppressed to fix oppression. It has to be done with allyship.
Fix oppression.
Which is where someone like
you guys
Draymond Green,
still care about oppression when
there's
there's fucking conflicts overseas.
But the thing about being an ally is when you come into that space, you should be listening first, not talking first.
This is how fucking the Roman Empire fell. Talking about this dumb shit while fucking there's some issues overseas that are fucking gonna be coming knocking on our doorstep pretty soon if we don't fucking pay attention. Because our politicians like fucking with everything.
Somebody who's been going through
or the news media outlets like fucking with everything too.
Then maybe we can get to the point where women aren't making 80 cents to every dollar that a man makes.
I mean, just look at fucking the Al Jazeera fucking news network.
About the lack of pay because they're doing themselves a disservice by just complaining.
Some of these news networks are not in the best interest of Americans in general.
Because they're not laying out steps that they can take to change that. Because the people that can change it, they're just going to continue to say, well, the revenue isn't there.
Some new questions tonight about the future of the WNBA, players' contracts after this year's seasons, and what will happen there, especially with one of the most popular players in the league now threatening the possibility of a strike. There's talks towards a collective bargaining agreement happening now.
Strike? Are you fucking kidding me?
And Chicago Sky
Holy shit, the most privileged people are going on fucking strike.
I gotta get in the
God
I'm hearing
damn.
like, they don't give us, if y'all don't give us what we want, like
it was the Hollywood script writers and actors.
Wage gap. We're going to talk about what the wage gap
now
is,
it's the WNBA.
Actually brings
Holy
in,
shit.
and the arguments for equal pay on both sides. And
when is the
video,
Twitch content creators going to get
into believe has the best argument?
I'm sorry.
All right, so before we start with the numbers, let's get into how the WNBA came to being.
In 1996, the NBA and its then commissioner David Stern launched a women's league, the WNBA. The men's league was going through a huge boom with Michael Jordan at the helm, and a women's league played in the summertime would provide a full year of basketball and would also help grow the sport internationally. The NBA and its owners would own the WNBA.
It survived because of the great support the NBA has given it over many years. So there's a reason why the WNBA is the longest tenured women's professional sports league in the country. Think about this, by double any other.
WNBA team owners received 50% stake in 2002. In 2022, the league raised $75 million from a group of investors, the league's first ever outside investment and the largest in women's sports history. They received 16% stake in return, leaving only 42% left for WNBA and its owners. But this also means only 42% of national-level revenue, like TV and sponsorship deals, trickles down to the WNBA owners. The remaining goes to the NBA and its owners, 5 of which are also WNBA owners, and the outside investor group. The current TV deal is worth about $60 million in 2024. Only about $2 million of that goes to each team.
Now, I know there were a lot of numbers thrown at you, but let's break this down pretty simply. All right, so to understand this issue, you have to understand how both the NBA and the WNBA distribute its money. Let's start with the NBA. For the NBA, you have the owners and you have the players, and they take 50% of basketball-related revenue. Now, in 2023, that revenue was $10.5 billion, and they've had an agreement since 1983 that they would share revenue 50-50. Now, our next step is to go to basketballreference.com. They list every NBA contract for the 2023-2024 season, and there were 496 contracts, as you can see on the screen. Now, if you just add up the money for the 2024-2025 season to see how much the players get paid, it should be around $5 billion, and I did the math, it's exactly $490,614. That's how much the NBA paid the players. So the NBA was simple, players and owners. But the WNBA gets really, really complicated. First, you got the WNBA players, they get a percentage. Then you have the WNBA owners. They also get a percentage. Along with that, you have the NBA owners who also get a percentage of WNBA revenue because they put in between $250 to $300
they
million
invest
to keep
in
the league
basically
going
the
this
shit.
long. And you have the outside investment group who spent $75 million
another
to get
investment
16% of basketball-related revenue. So these are the people who must get paid by the WNBA if it ever generates any revenue. And this is how the percentages are broken down. The WNBA players and owners take 40%
it kind of sounds like
of
esports.
basketball-related revenue. The NBA, who put in that $250
I'm sorry.
they get 42% of basketball-related revenue. And those investors who put in $75 million, they get 16% of basketball-related revenue. Now, if you split it out, it turns out that the players for the WNBA can only really get a max of 21% of basketball-related revenue. And remember, that's in contrast to
basically
NBA
low
players who get
stakes
50% of basketball-related revenue. So let's say the WNBA
it's just not really
made
low
$10
stakes,
billion
it's high
with
stakes
the
still.
NBA. How would that look?
But
Well,
lower
in that
ceiling,
case,
well, way
the
lower
players would get
ceiling.
$2.1 billion. Now remember, the men were getting $5
Esports, you only get like 1,000. Or not 1,000, I'm sorry. Millions. No billion. You're never close. No esports is close to that shit.
The NBA would get $4.2 billion.
They're like
but
the
that's
little
because they
leagues
invested
compared to
almost
fucking these
a third
guys.
of $1 billion into the league. And then that private investor group would also get $1.6 billion. So bottom line, in terms of percentage of revenue, the most the WNBA players can make is about 21 to 22%, while the NBA players make 50%. Now, this leads us into our first argument by WNBA players and their advocates that they should get about 50% of basketball-related revenue.
What's being lost in all that noise is the actual point. So let's unpack what the WNBA wage conversation is about. No, they don't want Steph Curry money. Well, they don't not want Steph Curry money. But that's just because Steph could pay the salary of every woman in the WNBA and still have enough left over to sign Le'Veon Bell. Anyone can make the argument that a younger, smaller, less popular league can't pay the same amount as the NBA. What's harder is arguing they can't pay the same percentage, which is what WNBA players are trying to tell you.
They recognize the difference in how much money each league brings in. But they do want a higher percentage of their league's revenue. Remember, NBA players get about 50% of what the league calls basketball-related income. A Forbes report last year estimated that WNBA players only get about 25% of BRI.
Well, Rachel, 25% is actually saying it too nice. It's actually closer to around 22%.
Yeah, like, and the big conversation about WNBA.
They'll get paid than most Americans, by the way.
What is, like, your, from a player and from players in general, like your teammates, what is that opinion and how do you guys handle all those conversations?
We are not asking to get paid what the men get paid. We're asking to get paid the same percentage of revenue shared.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Got it. So that's a huge misconception.
That's a huge misconception.
Got it. Okay.
For sure.
Yeah, because every video is like,
They-
oh, this person gets paid this person gets paid that, right?
So I want to be really clear about that. Like, I don't.
They basically want the same amount of investment that the NBA is getting towards the WNBA. But it doesn't work like
I think I
that.
actually get paid the same as LeBron.
Right.
But the percentage of revenue, like.
And now you know why the WNBA can't get paid the same percentage as the men, which is 50%, because all of these stakeholders are involved. It's
Yep.
not just the players and the owners, it's the players, the owners,
There's more
the
hands
NBA
in it.
investors who put 250 to 300 million into the league, and the outside investors who pumped in $75 million to the league.
Mhm.
All those people get a cut of the revenue. And as you can clearly see, the argument for a larger percentage of revenue is one that is ignorant at best. Because based on the way the league is set up, the most they can get is 21%. Unless the owners or the NBA or those outside
or some of them
investors
give up their
some of
right.
their equity.
Yeah.
Now, one thing you will not hear a lot is that the WNBA has never turned a profit. It's always had a deficit.
Yeah, it's always
So what
lost
do I mean by
profit.
that? Well, let me define some terms for you. First, I'm talking about revenue. Now, revenue is the amount of money a business generates. Then you have expenses, the cost incurred to run that business, rent,
Well,
salaries.
I shouldn't say
hiring
they lost
people,
profit, but
that
they
sort of
always
stuff.
lose money.
Then you have profit, which is essentially your revenue, the money you brought in, minus their expenses, the money you had to spend to generate that revenue. Now, if expenses are higher than revenue, you have a deficit. If revenue is higher than expenses, then you have profit. So this chart shows you the 2023 finances for the NBA and the WNBA side by side. As you can see here at the top, the NBA generated $10.58 billion in revenue, while the women's game only generated $200 million in revenue. But when you take into account expenses for the women's game, that revenue number actually drops to $40 million in the hole. In 2023, the female game lost $40 million. And remember, this was the WNBA's best season ever, and they still lost $40 million. Now, to be absolutely fair, they were projected
Sounds
to
like
lose
esports.
$50 million. So $40 million is actually a win. Now, on the plus side, the WNBA just signed a new
Esports
TV
is the same
rights
way,
deal
though.
for $2.2
They
billion
cannot,
over 11 years. So
they
it comes
cannot
out to
turn a
about
profit.
$200
They
million
can't turn
a year.
revenue.
The WNBA reportedly securing
They
a new
lose
round
money
of media rights
every
deals
time.
with NBC, Amazon, and Disney, the parent company of ABC, worth about $2.2 billion over 11 years, about $200 million a year. This new media package, a massive increase, 6 times bigger than its previous deal.
Now, with this $200 million a year, it should allow the WNBA to be profitable for the first time in its history. So out of that $200 million TV deal, the players are going to see about $42 million of that money. The owners get another $42 million, the NBA gets its $84 million, and the investors get their $32 million. And that's each year. Now, think about this. The WNBA players right now
I think
only
that's
get
sort
about
of the
$16 million
same.
a year in salary.
Honestly, I think that's sort of the same distribution in esports too, a little bit. Maybe if not more, because there's more hands in it. So you're probably getting less, right, in esports. Also, I don't even know if those people get a salary.
$1 million on top of that they can dole out to the players.
Especially
so
in
based on
America.
the numbers and the structure of the league, the WNBA players should be able to get more money with this next round of collective bargaining. Now, they won't be able to get the same percentage of revenue as the men are getting because, again, the structure of the league, but they are well
Or
on
maybe
their way
they
to
get
getting
paid
more.
out a
As
contract,
always, tell me
right,
where
a
I'm wrong
fixed
in the
amount of
comment
money.
section. Tell me, hey, Nate, I think
For
they should
the-
be paid just the same
for the
as the
year
NBA
or
players.
for
Full
however
stop.
how
I don't
many
care about
years.
what you make it. And if you're not bringing any money in, I don't care about the money. I don't care about the pay structure. I don't care about any of this stuff. They should get the same amount. I'm going to disagree with you because, unfortunately, whenever it comes to businesses,
Yeah,
and
that's
business
not how the world
practices, you
works.
can only
Sorry.
pay out what you make it.
You're
If
not gonna get
bringing
the
any
same
money in,
amount.
I can't pay any money out. That's just the name of the game. Don't forget, like, share, subscribe, do all that
The
good
same
stuff.
way
Hit the
as
subscribe button
not
right now.
everyone can
Do
be
not
a
hit
streamer.
The subscribe button. You're killing me. My name is Nate the Lawyer. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
The same way you're not gonna have all those new streamers who pop up become the next top streamer. Unless they become like a Kai Cenat or iShowSpeed, where they play into the stereotypes hard. See what we got here. Video shows police chase, arrest Upland burglary suspects. Boom! Let's go! Gotta love California, yeah? Is this a food place? Oh, they knew exactly where the safe was. Oh, you fucking fell. Oh, the cops were right there. Got him. No audio. Oh, they fucked up their tools. That's why they couldn't. Let's see what's going on here.
Is turning. DEI, a system of anti-meritocratic discrimination, is being dismantled, not just in the American government, but much more importantly for us here in the global corporate world as well. Once again, we can dream that our children will be judged on the content of the character and not the color of the square they post on Instagram. It's not a joke. COVID was clearly a Chinese virus. Hardworking, made on the cheap, and very good at multiplying. The number of testicular injuries in women's sports is through the roof. I don't think this is a laughing matter. We can all agree women's safety is incredibly important, which is why we must do a much better job of protecting their borders.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Hope all's good wherever you are. In this video, we're going to watch a speech by Konstantin Kisin where he spoke at the Alliance for Responsible Citizens ARC a month ago or so. This speech is called "The Tide is Turning," and he talks about the failed experiments that is Marxism in the West. Let's get it.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is great to be back at ARC. If we haven't met, my name is Konstantin. I was born in Soviet Russia, and I moved here when I was a teenager.
Slava
I love
Ukraine.
this country, and I say so publicly, which is how you know I still haven't integrated into British culture. Last time we were here, you might remember I opened my speech with this quote from Alexander Solzhenitsyn. I bring it up because it's still true, but also because one of my many critics after my speech claimed that in quoting Solzhenitsyn in this way, I was comparing myself to him. Now, this is of course ridiculous. Alexander Solzhenitsyn spent years in a hard labor camp where he endured a starvation diet, brutal punishments, and a complete deprivation of his liberty. I went to a British boarding school.
Just felt if they were to be too nice and they didn't follow it, it wouldn't be nobody clearly.
So, what has happened since we were last here? Well,
Those
on the
fucking guys.
positives, let's call it what it is. The tide is turning. Our American friends are leading the way. DEI, a system of anti-meritocratic
I feel like Kai and other black streamers like him do stare because it was the only way for them to be famous.
Importantly for us here in the global corporate world as well. Once again, we can dream that our children will be judged on the content of the character and not the color of the square they post on Instagram.
So what about Pokimane and those people?
Government profligacy
Do they play into the
corruption has been exposed
stereotype
on
well?
an industrial scale. Those may not be perfect, but according to one report, USAID
How about
gave
Mr.
$3 million
Asmongold?
to a rapper in Gaza who makes anti-Semitic
Mr.
songs. Now,
Cave
whatever
Dweller
your politics, we
Asmongold.
can all agree that's a waste of taxpayers' money. Kanye West would have done it for free. Now, thanks to the end of censorship on Twitter, we finally have the ability to express reasonable and widely held views. Because of this, other social media companies are now fearful of being too aggressive in their censorship too. Now, it's true, we haven't yet won the argument on freedom of speech here in Europe. I thought the most hilarious example of this was last year,
As
when
regards
J.D.
to
Vance gave a speech in Munich in
what?
which he criticized European leaders
Huh?
for trying to shut down speech that they don't like. The reaction? a German politician stood up and went, "This is unacceptable."
Nine. You will eat the bugs. You will eat the bugs.
The accent was a bit much, all right. So that's the positives, but there's been a lot of bad too. I mean, if you want to understand how bad the crime problem's become in Britain, British people used to deal with crime by 't the criminals to Australia. Now
That's true. That's true. They did do that. Are there any famous black political YouTubers? I'm sure there are, but they're not known. Charlemagne. You have some MSNBC dumbasses. I mean, they're out there. Charlo who? You don't know? Mr. King Charlemagne? You don't know King Charlemagne? Oh my god. Mr. God Complex King Charlemagne? This guy. Literally. I don't know who that motherfucker is, no cap? Uh-huh. Sure you don't. Mm-hmm. Like on God, 100 on the stack? Uh-huh. That's what they all say. How about Oprah? How about Whoopi Goldberg? Very political, by the way.
Injuries in women's sports is through the roof.
Famous, too.
I don't think this is a laughing matter. We can all agree women's safety is incredibly important, which is why we must do a much better job of protecting their balls. See, it's jokes like that that get me accused of being a conservative. And I hate it when people call me a conservative because I have made many mistakes over the last 14 years, but even I haven't let in hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants.
It's funny how he's
I'm not being rude. I am grateful
telling you
to the
a bunch of
Conservative Party.
jokes
They
here.
have achieved the unachievable. There is now a consensus in this country on that issue. I was talking to a politician the other day who said illegal immigration is one of the most important issues our country faces, and he was a Lib Dem. And look,
Lib Dem.
I know it's hard to say anything about that issue without being put in the bigger box. So let me just say, I empathize with and totally understand the motivations of the people who come here across the English Channel on smoke boats. I wouldn't want to stay in France either.
Don't go to Germany. They'll fucking take away your free. Well, they've taken away your free speech in Germany.
But look, I also hate it when people call me a conservative because it shows that they're missing my point. I don't believe that Western values and the societies they created are great because of an ideology or because of party affiliation. I believe our values and our societies are great because I've got eyes. When I look at the fact that millions of people risk their lives,
I don't know. In Tarkov, you get a lot of head eyes, and that's it. Game over, man.
I know there's a lot of frustration with the state of this country and much of the Western world, but let's keep things in perspective. Of all the things that human beings have invented over the last 200 years, our culture and its values are responsible for most of them. I'm not saying we have a monopoly on genius. There are exceptions, like COVID. That was invented in China.
Jesus.
Oh, it's controversial. Look, I know it's a controversial joke. In my defense, it's not a joke. COVID was clearly a Chinese virus. Hardworking, made on the cheap, and very good at multiplying.
God damn it.
Look at our Western societies. Societies that are built on value, on democracy, on reason, on individual liberty. If you think that they're not under siege right now, you've been living under a rock. The Marxists on the left, over the last few years, how many times have you heard the word colonizer? And they talk about slavery. Everything is seen through the lens of race. They completely ignore the West's unique contributions to the world, such as scientific progress, human rights, cultural achievements. The assault on the West has been driven by
What was the
ideology,
other one?
critical race
Americans
theory,
have
or
no
identity
culture.
politics, anti-Western
Everything was inherited,
revisionism,
right?
which is there's a lot of, especially if you look at schooling, the way they teach what happened in the civil rights movement and the slavery in America, it's like it's never happened anywhere else.
And
You
then
wanna see
obviously
something
that's
absolutely
fucking
cruel and brutal?
not true.
Look at the slave trade going west to the Muslim
I guess
countries. You wanna
people
know why
haven't
there's
looked
no
at
black
history
people
very
in those
well.
countries today from that era, slaves that would have had kids, is 'cause
When
they
George
could, they castrated the
Washington
men.
fucking
In the West, we abolished slavery. But the leftoids
sailed at night during fucking Christmas.
through the lens of race, the way they demonize the white population, the way they rewrite history, all exemplify this movement, like the 1619 Project. The left are always outraged about Western historical figures that, yes, they may have been flawed. So were a lot of people back in those times. You know, they'll talk about Thomas Jefferson or Winston Churchill, but then they'll take somebody like Marx, whose writing contains racial slurs, and he'll escape similar scrutiny because this is who they want to push. The West is always, these days, unfairly singled out as universal human failings. You know, white people, Judeo-Christian traditions are evil. But let's not forget that these are the freest countries in the world that have given the world the best free markets that have ever existed. And when we talk about Western countries, keep in mind one thing. People come to the West.
Yeah, hate America because we gave you guys free markets.
Goes to these other countries. How many people are leaving the West to go for better opportunities somewhere else? Not many. So let's keep that in mind when we talk about this. Let's get back to it.
One of the simplest things that most people no longer understand is that we don't lead the world on innovation because we're richer. We are richer because we lead the world on innovation. But all of this is at risk because we're in danger of forgetting how we got here. Do you know what this is? That's just a photo of me on the screen. All right. Can you see it? It's behind me. All right, it's like pantomime here. It's a plane made out of wood. Why would you make a plane out of wood? Well, during World War II, both Japan and the US used small islands in the Pacific to supply their armies. In exchange for occupying these islands,
They
they
basically
provided the
made some
tribes
like
who lived there
Wright
with food,
brothers
clothing, and medical
invention shit.
But when the war ended, the Japanese and the Americans packed up and left. And they took their supplies with them. So what did the natives do to try and restore them? They built plane imitations like that. They lit signal fires. They marched up and down with wooden rifles to summon back the provisions they'd got used to.
Mm.
And this is what we've been doing. We've been imitating the things that got us here instead of actually doing them. But the good news is this metaphor is complete bullshit. The success whose fruit we enjoy was not created by a more advanced foreign civilization. It was achieved by our grandparents and their grandparents before them. A better metaphor would be the one Philippa used when she opened this conference.
I tried to blow a bubble and it didn't go too well.
It's King Theoden from Lord
Bubble
of the
gum's
Rings.
too
He sits on his throne,
well.
paralyzed. Bound to his seat by lethargy and passivity, he's kept there by a weaselly servant called Grima Wormtongue. who whispers the spirits
Oh my
of
god,
how he
this
lies in
this
his ear.
analogy's so good with Biden.
Too many people on our screens, our newspapers, in our schools and colleges have been modern-day Grima Wormtongues who pour their cowardly lies in our ears and those of our children. If Grima was alive today, he'd have his own column.
Sounds
in the
like
Guardian.
Germany right now. I'm sorry.
We need to admit something very unpleasant. We have been lied to. For decades, people went on TV and told you that your history is all bad and your country's plagued by prejudice and intolerance. I have debated these people many times, and I always ask them the same question. If you're a woman or an ethnic minority or someone who was spirit, gender, or whatever,
transgenderism, yes.
in the West? And none of them ever answer, because we all know the answer. We are being accused of performing terribly on the very things we lead the world in. A healthy sense of your own self-worth, a self-confidence. These are not conservative values or liberal values. Those are the values of every successful group of people in history. Decline is a choice. And the good news is this: most people don't want managed decline. Most people don't want to be browbeaten and chastised for their history. Most people do not want their children to be poorer than them. And recent election results around the world bear that out. Like Kamalotham, the reason millions of people admire Elon Musk is not his charismatic speeches, stunning good looks, and ill-advised hand gestures. They admire him because he builds big things, and in doing so reminds us that we are meant to reach for the stars. A big part of the reason we are here, 4,000.
No, we're meant to fucking kill each other. What are you talking about? We're supposed to be infighting so that the war can. We need to continue the war machine. Isn't that what Zelensky and everybody wants in the EU?
How did he get so big? He reminded us of something.
Isn't that what Hassan wants? He wants war, right? He doesn't want peace. What about Destiny? He doesn't want peace. He wants war. What about Aslan? I'm sorry. I need to stop. I need to stop. All the streamers want war. Right? It fuels their pockets with money and drama. They love their drama.
So let's stop listening to the people who want us.
Why not give them some drama by throwing them into actual war, yes?
Let's open our eyes and see the world.
That's actual drama, yeah? They want drama, right?
Our civilization is special. We have built the most free and prosperous societies in the history of humanity.
Let's see how dramatic some of these motherfuckers get. Sorry, I'm a person who likes to ruffle feathers.
Many of them we've been talking about in the last 3 days.
I'm someone who will make you do some. You hate something, I'm gonna make you do it.
When people could be mean and nasty.
Right, get the box that has the mystery box, and you have to fucking stick your hand in it, and you have no idea what's inside of it. You just have to have blind faith to stick your hand in it. Yep, that's what you gotta do, bitch. And you're gonna fucking like it.
It's a Western value. The second argument we must win is on identity politics and multiculturalism. For several decades now, our societies have attempted these two failed experiments. The result is tension, disunity, and a toleration of the intolerable for the sake of so-called community cohesion. Multi-ethnic societies can work. Multicultural societies cannot. We must be British, American, Australian, and whatever else we are first, and male, female, white, black, and all that other stuff a distant second.
Learn software design basics.
And the final argument we must win is about whether human beings are good. In 1968, Paul Ehrlich published The Population Bomb, in which he argued that human population growth was about to outstrip food supplies, leading to mass starvation, societal collapse, and the need for drastic measures to control population growth. None of this happened. He was completely wrong. But the ideas live on unaffected in the minds of our political and media elites. At the core of the net zero agenda is a fundamental sense that human beings are a pestilence on the planet. That if only
it was
we could stop them reproducing and
March
encourage
14th,
them to
right?
die out peacefully,
Yeah, I forgot.
the planet would finally be safe. This has become so ingrained that many people now say they will not have children because of climate concerns.
Climate
must never get
concern.
used to this because it represents a grotesque moral
Fucking
inversion.
climate.
The birth of
Oh, sorry guys, not gonna have any children because the climate. What? Excuse
The
me?
birth of a child is a universally celebrated thing. And at a cultural level, any successful civilization would see more of itself being created as an unalloyed good.
No, if you said that they're
civilizations
that they eat up a lot of money and there's a lot of time investment. Okay, maybe now we're talking. Now, but the fact that you're like climate change, oh,
40% of children died before they hit
shit.
puberty. That means
You
2
lost
of the
me.
5 people next to you would be dead right now. Now, there are a lot of people outside this room who'd be happy about that. My point is, the promise of that better tomorrow is not just a nice thing to have. It's the debt we owe our children. We have to make energy cleaner, yes, but we also have to make it as cheap and abundant.
But that's
as
not
possible.
how some humans think. They feel like they don't owe anything to their
finally have the
children.
one thing
What do you
that's been
mean?
missing. An economic vision that can inspire people to believe that the future will be better than the past. Now look, they asked me to say something uplifting and motivational. I'm Russian, Ukrainian, British, and a little bit Jewish. Those are not 4 groups of people that are known for their optimism and joie de vivre. But let me share with you the most inspiring thing that anyone's ever told me. You're going to die.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all gonna die, huh? You are going to die. And when you do, there will be a gathering of people that loved you. They're going to say some words, meaningful, important words. They're going to put your body on the ground, and then they're going to go and eat some food.
Very
and after
much.
that, they're going to go home and squabble over your inheritance. That's it.
Yeah.
We're going to die.
Yeah.
We have nothing to lose. So we might as well speak the truth. We might as well reach for the stars. We might as
Everyone's
well
gonna
fight
be
like
put
a
in the
fight
fucking ground at one
because they
point.
do. Thank you very much.
And he's right. Multiculturalism didn't work. It's a failed experiment. Just how he highlights the
I mean, right, the only the fact that there wasn't any assimilation of that sort, right? There's no one assimilating.
Look at all the great countries in Europe. Germany, Sweden. Grape in Sweden, since multiculturalism hit them, is up over 3,000% in the last 3 or 4 years. 3,000%. This is rape. And this
No, I
is
shouldn't
rape
say no
of
one's
white
assimilating.
women by
I should say some people are not assimilating properly. In terms of, hey, probably don't break the fucking rules.
Hopefully it changes in Great Britain. I hope it changes in Germany and everywhere else as well. And we can get back to a sense of normalcy. Because as much as I'm an America First person, I'm a Western person as well. I want to see all the countries do well. Yes, I think we should take care of our own problems first, right? We have enough problems at home, the economy, the border, homeless crisis, fentanyl crisis, a housing market that is completely out of whack. Young people these days, salaries have not gone up much in the last 10 to 20 years, but housing prices and rental prices surely have. We got lots of problems to fix. And we shouldn't be out there fixing the world's problems, but I do hope that they fix their issues, that we can get back to a sense of normalcy. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, smash that thumbs up button for your boy. Consider subscribing to the channel. Help it grow.
Yeah, and America shouldn't be fucking fixing everyone's goddamn fucking problems. It wasn't our job to fucking do it in the first place. 10 life lessons of Dostoevsky. This is a great philosopher, thinker. He's the dude that the 5 minutes. Make peace within 5 minutes because you're gonna fucking die. Because he was the one that was detained to a prison because of his ideology, and he survived throughout that whole time. And he was gonna be sent to the firing squad, but before 5 minutes before, right? It was in that 5 minutes time, he was thinking about his death, or his oncoming death, I don't know. Oh, there's the story of the idol murdered in broad daylight. Oh yeah, this one. Yeah. Jesus, 30 stab wounds? Fucking hell. Oh, that's what happens when you get fucking caught out and you get stalked. Jesus. Morgan on Morgan.
Workers at the Amara shoe factory in Nam Dinh Province, Vietnam, staged a large-scale strike.
Oh
the
my
factory,
God, in Vietnam.
which employs 11,000 workers, is owned by Zhongshan Huali Industrial Group, a Guangdong-based company from China. The striking workers demanded wage increases for employees with over 5 years of service, higher meal subsidies, factory-provided meals for those working overtime until 7:30 p.m., and an additional 30-minute break. One worker expressed frustration, saying, "We've been working here for years, yet our wages haven't increased. We used to receive meal allowances for overtime, but now the company has cut them entirely. When we work here extra hours, all we get is a sandwich with no real break or time to eat." Due to the factory's size and the large number of workers involved, local authorities and the Ministry of Labor, as well as the police,
Ministry of Labor.
to mediate the dispute. Negotiations are currently
Ministry of Truth got canceled. Who's the next Ministry of Truth? Are the Democrats gonna make another Ministry of Truth?
Another major labor action just days earlier. On the morning of March 3rd,
Oh wait, is Hassan the Ministry of Truth as well as Destiny and Asmongold?
Thanh Province walked off the job,
God damn it, I'm so sorry.
monthly wages from 4.3 million
I keep
to 5 million
fucking
Vietnam
slamming
dong, around
streamers.
$169 to $196. Following mediation by local labor union representatives, Adiana management agreed to the wage increase and all workers returned to their jobs by the afternoon. Similarly, on March the 1st, nearly 2,500 workers at Roll Sport, another food factory in Thanh Hoa Province,
Vietnam
district, staged a strike over low wages, arguing that their current pay was below local standards. After negotiations with labor unions, Roll
it's
Sport
more like
agreed to
ton.
raise wages, prompting workers to resume production. Reports indicate that all three factories, Amara, Adiana, and Roll Sport, were subsidiaries of Zhongshan Huali Industrial Group Company Limited, a Taiwanese-owned enterprise headquartered in Zhongshan, China. As the world's second largest sports shoe manufacturer, Huali Group operates over 20 production-related factories, including those producing finished shoes, shoe materials, and molds. While its management headquarters and R&D center are based in Zhongshan, its primary production facilities are located in Vietnam, with additional factories in Indonesia, the Dominican Republic, and Myanmar.
Look at those Converse, man.
It manufactures footwear for international brands such as Nike, VF, Deckers, Puma, and Columbia, with most of its products destined for North American
Yes,
and European
they do have
markets.
facilities in
Many social
Vietnam
media users praised Vietnamese
and in
workers
all
for
these
standing up
Asian
for their
countries.
rights, arguing that fair treatment is achieved through collective action rather than employer generosity. They left comments like, "Vietnamese workers are united and understand how to use the law to protect themselves. I worked in a factory in Vietnam for several years, and their organizing power is strong. If wages aren't paid,
It sounds like right, the 1980s or 1970s fucking United States right here, where you would get people just coming in and out of like the workshops and stuff.
Others lamented the situation in China.
We don't have that shit anymore nowadays, though. It's only in the Asian countries that they do this kind of shit now.
Vietnam is a country with hope, while Chinese labor unions serve as mere formalities without advocating for workers' rights.
We barely do this in the United States anymore.
Are the only ones in the world
I wonder
who
why.
tirelessly work long hours without demanding
Maybe it
fair
was
pay.
because of the poor
That's why we've
conditions.
developed so quickly. Try finding another country where working 12 hours a day is considered normal. Another comment questions the role of Chinese labor unions, with one user bluntly stating, "I don't even know what China's labor unions do." Since early March, multiple large-scale strikes have erupted across Vietnam, with many occurring at Chinese-owned enterprises.
Chinese-owned enterprises, and the Vietnamese are fucking saying "fuck you."
At least 10 companies experienced strikes involving over 25,000
Oh shit.
workers. The main demands have been higher wages and better rest periods, and in most cases, the disputes were resolved through negotiations facilitated by local labor
The workers'
unions and
uprising.
government For example, in January, a Chinese-owned garment factory in Vietnam's northern Dong Nai province faced a mass strike after unilaterally extending employees' working hours. The factory had changed the work schedule from 7 a.m.
Hey
to
Twitch, what
3
are you gonna do about this?
to 7
Fuck
a.m.
boys.
to 4 p.m., adding an extra 30 minutes to the
Sorry.
workday. The move triggered
I'm
strong
sorry.
opposition from the labor union.
I'm getting on
ultimately leading
Twitch's case because they've been
1,500
doing some weird
employees to
shit
go
over
on
the
strike.
years.
Management was forced to compromise and reinstate the original work schedule. The wave of labor actions has sparked heated discussions online, with social media users questioning why these companies enforce grueling 12-hour shifts and 2-shift rotations without guaranteed weekends in China, yet adopt an 8-hour, 5-day work week with mandatory rest days when operating overseas.
明明是同一家公司，而国内的工人要
It's the same company, yet workers in China have to work over 10 hours a day, while those in Vietnam only work 8.
Is she speaking Mandarin?
A large-scale strike broke out in Vietnam because a Chinese company tried to impose its
She was speaking a
9964
different
culture
dialect of
on a
Chinese
Vietnamese
there.
factory. They extended working hours without permission
I think.
and even cut meal breaks by 30 minutes. Well, that didn't sit well with the workers.
'Cause that
They
didn't
weren't
sound
having
normal,
it. In
Chinese.
response, 1,500 of them went on strike and took the company straight to the labor union. Vietnam's labor union stepped
Or at
in
least that didn't
immediately,
sound like the
saying
normal
the new
thing I
arrangement
was used to
unacceptable.
listening.
The company tried to argue, we're a multinational corporation. Policies aren't always the same everywhere. This is just how we operate in China too. But the Vietnamese labor union stood its ground. In the end, under pressure, the company had no choice but to restore the original working hours. Some Chinese business owners in Vietnam are now considering, why do Vietnamese workers have so much confidence when standing up for themselves? Chinese business owners say it's largely because of Vietnam's strong labor unions, which are legally recognized and actually fight for workers' rights. What do you think? Strikes have been breaking.
Well, I mean, when the Vietnamese people were oppressed back in the day by the Chinese, I mean, I don't think I'm pretty sure some of those Vietnamese people don't fuck around. Even my uncle, who was part of the both my grandparents were my grandpa from my mother's side and my dad's side. Both were in the Vietnam bullshit. Same with my uncle, apparently. I don't know. So, let's just say they don't have a very great time with certain things. Well, both my grandparents are passed away now.
Out across Vietnam,
Uncle's
and
still,
in most cases,
still
workers'
kicking,
demands
but
have been met. This has left many
he
Chinese
smokes a lot
workers
of fucking
feeling bitter.
cigarettes, which is
One
bad.
person commented, 12-hour shifts bring
that's,
nothing for us,
that's
while
because of
Vietnamese
the
workers dare to strike for an 8-hour day
the
and a
stress
$5
and
million
anxiety
salary.
from
It's
shit.
frustrating to compare. Another quipped, bosses who are used to exploiting workers shouldn't go to Vietnam. They'll just embarrass themselves. Workers there won't put up with that nonsense. This is why many Chinese companies moving their assembly lines to Vietnam have found themselves struggling. They assume they could treat workers there the same way they do in China, only to realize that in so-called backward Vietnam, workers refuse to be tamed and are quick to protest. Take
Well, I mean, you
BYD,
still have
China's
fucking
leading EV
North
manufacturer,
Vietnam with
which has been
fucking
aggressively expanding into Vietnam in recent years.
Right, the
company
commies.
has invested in
The
electronic
Viet Cong
and auto
people.
parts factories in the country, but Vietnamese workers quickly gave them a reality check. In September 2022, just 3 months after opening, BYD's new factory in Vietnam faced a massive strike, with over 1,000 workers walking
People
off the
just
job,
do not
dealing
like
a
being
major
oppressed,
blow
you
to the
know?
company. Workers demanded changes in several areas. One, the factory failed to provide night shift allowances as required by law. Night shift pay should be 130% of daytime pay. 2. Meal subsidies were too low, only 1.1 million dong per month, which wasn't enough
The
for 10 meals
dong.
a day at the factory.
The Viet
3.
dong.
The base salary was only 4.2 million dong, while other companies in the industrial park paid at least 4.4 million dong. 4. If workers only did 1 hour of overtime instead of 2, their performance bonus was deducted. 5. Dormitory conditions were poor and cafeteria food was subpar. 6. Female employees were not allowed to take breaks during menstruation. 7. No break times were scheduled between shifts. Under strong intervention from the local labor union, BYD Vietnam responded within 2 days. 1. From September the 1st, the base salary increased from 4.2 million to 4.8 million dong. 2. Night shift pay was adjusted. 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. increased to 130%, 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. to 200%, and 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. to 150%. 3. Female employees were granted 30-minute breaks during menstruation, and break times were introduced between shifts. 4. Cafeteria food quality was improved, restrooms were upgraded, and workers were provided with adequate toilet paper. By
Wait,
comparison,
what? They weren't
BYD's
provided
practices
with
in China
toilet?
are far less
Jesus!
onerous. Factory shifts typically run 12
See what I
hours
mean?
a day, 6 days a week. Night shift
The
allowances are
conditions
only
in
2
some of
yuan
these
per hour,
workplaces are
far below
worse
the
than fucking
130%
the United
standard applied
States.
in Vietnam. For Chinese
You
workers,
don't
idea
want to
of
be
striking
working
for
in some of
shorter
these Asian
overtime,
countries, to be
menstrual
honest.
leave, or better meals seems like a fantasy, something they wouldn't even dare to imagine. But in Vietnam, workers' demands were met. BYD tried to implement the same labor policies
But
in Vietnam as
things
in
must
China,
be done.
but Vietnamese
You need to
workers
make
pushed
money.
back. This proves
Unfortunately, you
that
have
not
to
every
be a
country's
cog in the
workforce can be
machine if you
treated
want to
like
make money.
China's, where workers endure harsh conditions without complaint. Meanwhile, in 2024, BYD's factory in China saw a strike that left many stunned, not because workers were demanding better wages or rest, but because they were demanding more overtime. In
More
mid-May,
overtime
BYD's
pay? Oh,
Wuxi
shit.
Electronics factory suddenly announced that all IDL employees, workshop managers, and technicians would switch to a 5-day, 8-hour work schedule. Previously, they had worked 12-hour shifts with just 1 day off per week. After the change, their wages were cut nearly in half, so they went on strike demanding overtime be reinstated. Some might think these workers are crazy, not asking for a raise, but asking for long hours instead. But it's not entirely their fault. Most migrant workers take these jobs to support their families. Under
Yep.
BYD's pay structure, if they worked 5 8-hour days a week, their monthly salary
Yeah,
would only
so
be
basically the
2,490
you get
yuan,
you,
barely
you
enough
basically get a recruiter who goes to these areas and just calls out, anyone looking for work? Basically. And then they fucking take them to the spot.
to survive, let alone support
Because they're
a
probably
family.
just doing
They had
work
no
for the
choice but to
day,
demand
maybe
overtime. It wasn't a choice,
maybe for the
but a
week, who knows?
necessity. The strike sparked heated discussions online. One netizen commented, "This completely exposes the wage levels in most Chinese factories. Workers are literally working themselves to death. These pay structures force people to voluntarily take overtime, to accept working longer hours. I've seen workers stand for 16 hours a day for 4 straight months without a single day off." Another remarked, "Everywhere else in the world, workers go on strike to demand fewer hours, less overtime, and higher wages. Only in China do workers strike to demand more hours so they can earn enough to survive. That's truly unique to China." Someone else pointed out, "This is a result of cutthroat competition. Someone else is willing to work 9. In the end, everyone is forced to work 12. In a society that looks down on the poor and blames poverty on a lack of effort, no one can escape this cycle." The demands of BYD striking employees highlight the struggles and helplessness of China's workforce. But this isn't just happening at BYD, it's the reality in most Chinese factories. Another major automaker, Geely, has also been in the spotlight recently. A Geely employee posted online, Geely in the south, Great Wall in the north, both are notorious for overworking their employees. To meet sales targets, workers are squeezed for overtime. When projects are urgent, there are weeks with no days off. Working past 10 p.m. is normal, and night shifts run nonstop all year.
Uh-oh.
One person
24/7.
With such intense deadlines, can the quality of these cars really be good? Would you dare to drive a car made by exhausted, overworked employees? Another said, these low human rights
then I don't think you know a
workers to the
college
bone.
student or
No
university
wonder the US
student.
slaps tariffs on them. It's justified. If they don't even treat their own workers as human, how do they expect to compete with the West through industrialization? They're dreaming. A recent labor dispute
also get
in
no
China
pay.
has also been widely discussed online. In January, an employee at
We just
Huizhou Desai
love
battery
getting
factory posted a
no
video
pay for our
exposing the
work,
harsh
right?
conditions and illegal
All the
punishments
time
at
we
the company's
spent
so-called
learning.
This is the Huizhou Desai battery factory. It's 6:41 a.m. right now. I've been working since 8:30 p.m. on January 22nd, and I just finished my shift at 6:30 a.m. But get this, my team leader told me that if I clock out after 8 hours, it counts as absenteeism, and they'll deduct 3 days' wages from me.
Wait, what?
The factory lights are still on. It's Sunday,
Wait,
but we're
if
all
you
working overtime.
if you
They don't even
clock
record
out
Sunday
that,
shifts,
what?
just to make the numbers look clean
That
on
doesn't
paper.
make any sense.
Look at the production lines. Workers are still there. The second, third, and fourth floors are all packed. Every single line is still running. Temporary workers like us don't even get overtime pay. Factory management has probably made a deal with full-time employees to cover this up. But the reality is clear. Just like most factories, Huizhou Desai finds ways to bypass labor laws.
So they're
It's
doing some
disgusting.
underhanded
Look at the
stuff.
slogans on the
See,
wall.
this is the
Diligence,
workplace of
integrity,
Asian countries.
Cooperation, innovation.
Or well, some of
They
them.
don't even live up to integrity. When labor inspectors come, they claim it's an 8-hour workday with Sundays off. But in reality, it's just more exploitation and oppression.
According to a follow-up video from the worker, his team leader asked him to stay for an extra 2 hours of overtime after his shift. He refused, wanting
run.
to go home and rest.
Once
The
you
team
have
leader
someone
warned
telling you,
that if
hey,
he
can you
didn't
work
the extra
overtime?
2
Be like,
hours,
yeah,
it would
no.
be treated as an absenteeism. Not only would he lose
Just
that
be
day's
like
wages,
straight up, yeah,
but he
no,
would
I'm
also
sorry.
deduct
I
3
gotta clock
additional
out right
days'
now.
pay,
Sorry, I'm on
essentially
I'm on a
working 4
timer
days
here.
for nothing.
Right.
The worker,
I'm on a
unwilling to
clock.
stay,
I
clocked
can't.
out
I
and
gotta
left.
go.
To his surprise,
You have me
management
work
actually
doing
followed through with the penalty and
doing
deducted
outside of
3
work,
days'
right?
wages.
I gotta go,
Unhappy with
man.
the
This is
decision,
my
he
time.
recorded a video at the factory and uploaded it to Douyin. The video quickly resonated with workers across China, especially the line, clocking out after an 8-hour shift counts as absenteeism, which blatantly violated labor laws. Outraged social media users began sharing the video in support, and it soon went viral. Shortly after, the worker received a phone call from someone who asked him a series of questions before subtly pressuring him to delete the video. When he refused, the caller escalated the threat, saying they had his and his family's personal information and would expose it if the
Blackmail.
video was not taken
Uh-oh.
down. Instead of backing down,
Government
the worker doubled
blackmail.
down. He publicly posted his own name and his information on Douyin, openly challenging those trying to intimidate him. His defiant stand gained widespread support online. Many social media users defended him, stating that he had simply documented the injustice he faced. What was wrong with that? One person commented, "We have to win this fight. Remember, a single finger breaks easily,
That one
but a
person was
clenched
like, oh
fist
shit,
is
that dude's
strong.
filming. I
Stand
gotta
together
move.
and fight back." Another voiced their solidarity. "I am willing to speak up for workers' rights. This isn't just about you. There are many Chinese people behind you who will support you. Stay strong." Others called for institutional support, with one user saying, "I really hope some organizations can step in and help migrant workers like us when we face these issues." To prevent the video from being removed, many Douyin users reposted it on their own accounts, and it was also shared on platforms like Bilibili and RedNote. Although the incident happened in January, it has only recently begun to gain traction. A search on social media now brings up numerous clips from the original video. Social media users are determined to push the case onto trending lists to attract attention from relevant authorities.
Wow.
Since DSA
Social
Battery
media
is an Apple
doing its
supplier,
job.
Some users tagged Apple in their posts,
Amplifying
urging the
it.
company to intervene and help the worker defend his rights. Others called for mass complaints for Apple's customer service online. Some even remarked that in China, seeking justice often means turning to the US, a reality that may have long come to accept. This labor rights struggle in China stands in stark
Why,
contrast
the
to
Chinese
strikes
people
in
don't like the
Vietnam.
US?
In
Oh, that's
Vietnam,
unfortunate.
thousands of workers unite with massive demonstrations backed by strong labor unions, making it impossible for factories to ignore their demands. Meanwhile, in China, a lone individual dares to speak out but can only rely on Douyin to voice his grievances. Fortunately, the internet has
Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure a lot of
users to
people know
rally
what the
and
fuck is
support,
happening in
ensuring he
China.
does not fight alone.
With the
As
bad
for labor
working
unions,
conditions and
that is
shit.
out of the question. Under such conditions, the chances of workers successfully defending their rights in China are close to zero. One key reason Vietnamese workers are able to stand their ground is the shift of manufacturing from China to Vietnam, largely due to the Trump administration's repeated tariff hikes on Chinese
tariffing,
goods. Many Chinese companies moved
Yeah, I
their
mean, that's how
factories to
every
Vietnam,
country is going
leading
to
to
start
labor
be moving now. With all the tariffs happening, they're going to be moving to different countries to fight the tariff, right? To try and save some money.
shortages as demand for workers surged. A Chinese user in Vietnam noted that local shoe factories are
I
overwhelmed.
mean, just
with
look at what
orders this
happened
year,
with the
and with
production
business booming,
facility
labor
or
shortages have
production
given
or
workers
whatever they were
leverage.
making for
When
car
facing a
companies
strike,
in Mexico.
factory owners have
They
no
fucking
choice but
stopped
to
and
comply.
decided to
In such
go
a labor
back to the
market,
United
Chinese
States.
employers
Like, oh.
attempting to use the same exploitative tactics they
Wasted
do
some
in
money
China
there, hey?
quickly find that it simply doesn't work.
Anyways, China Observer, even though they were talking about Chinese firms and Vietnamese workers. Senate avoids government shutdown. Oh my gosh.
The controversy surrounding Columbia University's anti-Israel agitators has taken another dramatic turn, as the university has now
Good, fuck 'em.
started suspending and expelling students who took over campus buildings. Columbia Assistant Professor Shai Davidai joins us now with the details. Shai, what could you tell us about this move from the university?
First, we have to give credit where credit is due. For the past 17 months, I've been probably the most vocal opponent of this anti-Jewish, anti-Israel, and anti-American activity on campus. And I've been really outspoken about the university's inaction, the administration's inaction. And finally, they are putting their foot down. It shouldn't have taken $400 million of federal grants and threats from the government to do the right thing, but better late than never. At the same time, this is not a qualifier. At the same time, we have to remember
But yeah.
what these students are being suspended and expelled for is their activity in April 2024. It took the university almost 10 months to bring these students to justice.
The charges
And
from 10
if
months
the
ago.
university had acted
Oh,
faster
Jesus.
and more determined back then, we wouldn't have been in this situation. We
As
could
you
have
can
avoided
see,
things like
the
two
court
violent
system's slow.
takeovers
Oh, well, this
on
is in
Barnard
Colombia.
College, which hospitalized a university staff member. We could have avoided the taking over of a Israeli professor's class that was targeted for being Israeli, right? That they disrupted him. So there's many things we could have avoided. Credit where credit is due. I hope that now this is the turning point where the university stops putting
In New
out
York.
empty statements and starts taking concrete actions.
Well, let's talk about the international news coming out of Colombia the past week or so. It's been the potential deportation of grad student Mahmoud Khalil.
Gotta love
What
New
is your
York,
thoughts on
right?
that whole situation.
I think everyone should lower the flames a little bit. Mahmoud Khalil is not a villain. He's not a hero. He is a U.S. Green card holder who allegedly violated the
He's an
conditions of
agitator,
his
that's
green
for
card
sure.
by disrupting the welfare of the public and by spreading U.S. designated terrorist propaganda and by engaging in unlawful activity. I feel the need to remind people that I too am a green card holder. I am not a U.S. citizen. I am bound by the same rules and conditions that Mr.
Exactly.
Khalil is
He's bound by the
by.
same rules,
only
and
difference
he
between
still
him
has
and
to
I is
play
that
by the
I
book.
didn't break the
Whereas the
rules,
other
and he
guy's
broke the
like,
rules, and that's why I get to stay here.
the
At the
fuck
same
are you
time,
doing?
Mahmoud Khalil deserves, like any other person, a fair due process. I believe and hope that the administration will give him that process. And will
No, I
find
think it's a
him
waste of time to give him
based
that
on
kind of
the,
due
insurmountable
what? Give him a trial so that he can waste taxpayer money? Fuck that guy.
So here's the question. If you look at different news sites,
Just
it's
get the
not
judge to
shocking, but, one side says well, these are
just allow the judge to be
Hamas
the
supporters, and the other
jury,
side says,
basically.
you're blocking free speech. Where do you think the
I
line is? Do you
don't. I
think
don't want to
this
get a
pushback
jury that's
from
gonna
the
take
university,
much
from the
more
Trump
time
administration,
and
from
money.
ICE
No, no,
is
no.
blocking free speech?
Absolutely not. This is a situation where Mahmoud Khalil is being used as a pawn in other people's game. He is not being. Is the alleged things that he has done have nothing to do with his speech. It's with his conduct and actions. You are allowed to hold as reprehensible views that you want in the United States. It's you have the freedom to be wrong. That's free speech. I have the freedom to dislike you for what you say. You do not have the freedom to lead an organization that, one, spreads U.S. designated terrorist propaganda.
Oh, sounds
Two,
like
violently
fucking.
takes over university buildings. And three,
Sounds like that one
specifically
fucking
focuses
retard
on
on Twitch who
targeting
talks a lot
one
of game.
minority, namely the Jewish and Israeli minority on campus. Those have nothing to do with free speech.
Well,
I
actually, there's
will
a
stand,
couple of them.
For everybody's free speech, including people who I detest
Well, there's more
and
than a
whose
couple.
views I detest, because they have the right to speak, but they don't have the right to incite terror in the U.S. or in any other Western democracy.
Well, Shai, last question. What can you tell us about
You
an
got the
email you recently
Frogans,
received
the
from the administration?
Denims, the
Yeah, it's I have to tell
Mike
because
from
people don't understand what
PA or
it's like
some
being
shit.
in Colombia or at Colombia. We've had 17 months of inaction.
Hassan,
We've had
right? The
maybe
Hassan
48 hours of
orbiters.
action by the university. We got the following
Or
email.
I
I
should
wanna
say
read it to you
the
so
the
people understand
Destiny
what we're dealing with. This is
orbiters.
from the interim president
Because
of the
Hassan is an
university, Ms.
orbiter of
Katrina
Destiny.
Armstrong. And it starts with, dear fellow members of the community, I am writing heartbroken to inform you that we had federal agents from the DHS in 2 university residences tonight. No one was arrested or detained. No items were removed, etc., etc. But then she goes on and says, federal agents served Columbia University with 2 judicial search warrants signed by a federal magistrate judge authorizing them to come. So this is what drives me crazy. The president of Columbia University is heartbroken by the fact that Department of Homeland Security federal agents came to the university with legal warrants to investigate criminal activity. She's not heartbroken by the fact that there's a need to serve the warrants. She's not heartbroken by the fact that the illegal or allegedly illegal activity is happening on campus and has been happening over the past 17 months. She's heartbroken by the administration legally doing what they can and should to deal with this issue. That shows you not just about Columbia, but where many of these universities' moral compass stands. It's not enough just to do the right thing. You have to stand behind the right thing and say, we are standing for democracy. We're standing for the rule of law. And
For
I will not be
democracy.
heartbroken when any
Some Helldivers
legal
too?
enforcement
Yeah.
individual does their job.
Do we get some Helldivers too up in this
You
bitch?
can't.
Get
I'm sorry if
everyone
I'm going too
drafted?
long, but
Yeah,
you
I think
cannot
that's a good
spend
idea.
all your life railing
Yeah, all these
against
protesters.
the legal system,
Send
railing
them to the
against law
draft.
enforcement when they do things that are wrong, and then when they do everything right,
Start
say, but
fucking
you're
taping them up, hog tying them, do whatever you need to do to
by the
fucking
legal
ship them to the
actions of the
fucking
administration
barracks.
to make sure that that activity doesn't happen.
Shai Davidi, thank you as always, my friend.
Thank you, and thank you to all your supportive audience. We may not have the same religion. We may
New
not have
Syrian
different
regime
political
signs
ideology,
agreement
but we are
with
the same
Kurds.
people.
Interesting.
We're fighting for the same cause. Thank you, everyone.
Friend or foe? Young police fan, shocking surprise from President Trump. Christian genocide. Is a Christian genocide happening in Syria? Oh. Yeah, I was wondering about that.
Joel, the situation in Syria is really heating up. Some very disturbing headlines coming out of that region. There are reports that hundreds of people have been killed along Syria's Mediterranean coast. What is going on? What do you know?
Well, first of all, it's almost certainly in the thousands by now. There's a list circulating of 717 names of Alawite Muslim civilians who were killed in the last few days, and that list was circulated on Saturday.
Muslim civilians killed.
The killings haven't stopped. as far
Hide
as
the
we can tell.
Mudahars.
It's extremely grave. Armed forces loyal to the new Syrian government have attacked. this
Actually, he
region,
lives
the
in
coastal
Canada
region of
land, so he's
Syria,
fine.
Where most of the people who live there,
Unless
belong
someone
to the Alawite
kidnaps
Muslim
him and then
sect.
sends him over.
This is
to
a
the fuck-
sect of Islam that the jihadist worldview would consider an apostate sect, which means they're outside the law, they're outside of protection, they can be killed, they can be enslaved. Really seen as worse.
All right, I'm not gonna go through this whole thing. But yeah, Syria's popping off again. What time is it? All right. I think I'm gonna